So hello fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And a relative of mine sent me one of these conspiracy theory things about Bill Gates and his father and how both of them want or they like population control, and that's one of their goals is population control. They also were showing how many different entities Bill Gates is invested in and how he wants to use, I think it's Starbucks coffee as part of his population control thing. I wanted to go into, I don't even need a reference to show how ridiculous some of these things are, but I guess the one that I want to talk about the most is the population control bit. And in other videos that she sent me, I might have said something like, they weren't specifically about Bill Gates, but I would have said something like, I don't think that anybody's really trying to control the population, because if you control, let's say you reduce the population of a whole bunch of poor people, that's not who are you going to rule, you know? Who are you going to get to do things for you? Who's going to work for you? It doesn't make sense. But in thinking about what she sent me today, I realized, no, hold on. I am in favor of population control. And no, not along the lines of what happened in China necessarily, where they had that one-child policy, but along the lines of populations in many developed countries seem to be going down. And part of the reason for that is the reason that population in undeveloped countries are still a lot higher, which is in developed countries, women are not used as population or reproductive machines. That is kind of what women's role in many poorer countries are, is simply as reproductive machines. It's a woman's job in many instances to take care of the family and work at home and have kids and raise those kids. That's her job. And in developed countries, women actually have options. Not the best options. If you look at many countries, for example, like the US, have never had a female leader, for example. Great Britain has had Germany, Great Britain, New Zealand, India, a lot of countries have had female leaders. And that's a good thing. Women don't see their role as simply raising children. And in the developed world, there are many women who lead satisfying, much happier lives than if a woman's place is in the home was still the motto in developed countries. So basically, my idea is that the fact that Bill Gates is promoting, or even his father had influence in Planned Parenthood, that is not something that is a negative thing. But the video that my relative sent to me kept hounding on it, and to me, one of the sadder things about it was the fact that it was actually a woman's voice in the piece that was talking about this population control. From another purely objective point of view, and I plan on going back to both of these points, you can't have an infinite number of people on this planet. That just doesn't make sense. We have a finite amount of space. We have a finite amount of fresh water. We have, different limitations in terms of fertilizers and pesticides that we might want to use, how it might affect the environment. Apparently, we share the planet with other life forms that we don't want to make extinct, so that there's enough food for us to grow in order to eat. I think it's probably a good idea not to just convert the entire planet into a farm. And even then, when you reach that point, shouldn't you perhaps think about not reproducing as much? I mean, it's put. When you think of how women, let's say, for example, in Afghanistan, they have to wear a burqa in some areas of Afghanistan, and if they don't, they're going to be in trouble. If a woman is raped in some parts of Afghanistan, she might be put to death, and nobody's really going to take her word about what happened. It's just that she was unfaithful and she might be stoned to death. Before there were antibiotics and proper medical care, apparently between 1 in 10 and 1 in 4 women died in childbirth. If a woman has 3 kids, then her chance of dying in childbirth, if it's a 0.9 likelihood of survival, it probably descends to something along the lines of 28% chance that she'll die in childbirth after 3 kids. And most women had many kids. So here we have women who would be risking their lives to have children. Women have a much higher chance of getting an STD, for example, because, of course, men leave something inside of them. So if you don't use condoms and contraceptives, women are basically risking their lives. As a result of pregnancy, women can have varicose veins, they can become incontinent, they can have certain things called fistulas, where a part of your your intestinal tract, basically there's a hole that can form from your digestion, your intestinal tract, all the way out of you. So then that means that you can't hold in your feces. And in Africa, women who get that kind of thing, they can become completely ostracized from the villages or wherever they live, because unfortunately they'll have infections and they'll also have a constant leakage of feces through their bodies. Not to mention the fact that a husband can die and nobody knows what's going to happen. If his family is going to take his stuff that he leaves and leaves a woman without any options. It might be that a guy might decide he does not want to be responsible for a child. Almost any way that you look at it, the idea of not just population control, but giving a woman the ability to control her reproductive rights or self, that is not something to be ashamed of. That's not something that is some kind of conspiracy, plan to take over the world. It really isn't anything for Bill Gates, and I'm sure he's not ashamed of it or what his father has done. But, as I would have repeated, it's just so sad to see that a woman would not realize what the effect of controlling population, if you want to use that word, the power that it gives to women in every part of the world to be able to control their bodies and not be reproductive machines for their husband. Or even in one case, I recall that in India, as would also have been the case in China, but in India, people abort their girls. So there's a lack in many places I think even in Korea, even in China, of women to marry. But in the one instance that I remember, it was an Indian guy, and his concern was not that he didn't have a wife to marry, to have kids, or to, somebody to love and, share his life with. No, he was concerned that he couldn't get married, um, and that meant that there was nobody to take care of his parents. That was why he wanted to get married. He wanted to have somebody to take care of his parents. And even though we see it as a population bomb, I think is what that might be the term for the fact that there are, women or people, families, whatever the term might be, are not having enough kids to replace the existing population in developed countries. Even though that is the case, one of the other sides of it, or the other side of the coin, is that women in those areas of the world probably live happier lives, knowing, or because they don't have to have kids. They don't have that put on them where they are the ones, the primary caregivers for the children who raise the kids. And in some instance, if the husband abandons them, or the person doesn't claim the child, or the husband dies, or any of these different scenarios, they have to raise these kids, however many of them there are, without any assistance. And it's really, really horrible that this whole idea can be framed in a negative light. I think it's really awful. Of course, there were a number of other silly claims with respect to GMOs. I'm sorry if you don't understand how GMOs work. As I was telling my relative, everything is genetically modified. That's how sexual reproduction works. You have a male, you have a female. They mix the genes of their parents as well into a new organism, and it's different. So it is genetically modified. On a genetic level, it has been modified. What people might be talking about when they talk about GMOs are artificially genetically modified. So, but anyway, I don't want to go too deep into it. Bill Gates should be proud. I am proud of him for helping women across the world. And that's it. And you can wish me luck. So you can like or unlike. You can comment. You can subscribe or share. And of course, if you really don't want to do anything, you can do nothing. Peace.